siamo riuniti da ogni latitudine, fuso orario, con grande gioia, senz'altro, no? Per guardare insieme alla fraternità come categoria di ispirazione, strategia e metodo verso un mondo di pace. L'occasione, come sappiamo, è quella dei 25 anni della laurea honoris causa in Scienze della Comunicazione a Chiara Lubich, la principale ispiratrice di Net1. Ma per chi non avesse sentito parlare molto di Net1 prima, dico due parole su di noi. Net1 è un'associazione internazionale di comunicatori, di professionisti dei media, del cinema, di studiosi, di ricercatori e operatori della comunicazione e della information technology. È uno spazio di dialogo dove condividere esperienze professionali, approfondimenti culturali, percorsi formativi, azioni e progetti per una comunicazione mediatica che susciti fraternità. È ispirata da uno dei principi e dai valori della spiritualità dell'unità, nata da una proposta di Chiara Lubich, una delle personalità spirituali eminenti del secolo XX, del secolo scorso, e fondatrice del movimento dei focolari. Nel prossimo segmento andremo un po' alle radici di Net1 e della sua ricca storia. E per primo vi presento Michele Zanzucchi, docente dell'Istituto Universitario Sofia, già direttore della rivista Città Nuova, scrittore prolifico e stretto collaboratore di Chiara Lubich. Ringraziamo in modo particolare davvero il suo contributo perché lui ha potuto partecipare attraverso un video che vedremo tra poco, che ci ha mandato durante i giorni molto speciali, delicati della partenza per l'ultimo viaggio, quello verso il cielo del padre Michele Zanzucchi, che è praticamente un confondatore accanto a Chiara Lubich, insieme alla moglie Anna Maria, di tutta l'area delle famiglie del movimento dei focolari. Con queste poche parole
So, with these words, we join.
Ascoltiamo allora il video.
We listen to the video of Professor Michele Zanzucchi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michele Zanzucchi. I am a teacher at the Sofia University, and I am the so-called among the founding partners of Net1. In 1944, Chiara Lubich, who was called Silvia Lubich at that time, took part in a journal called Amico Serafico, Serafical Friend, which was a journal of the Capuchins. At the end of the 40s, and in 1958, the first movie was shot about the Focolare movement. The major example of this tension in the video was Città Nuova, New City, with the magazine and the publishing house that was really in the first line, especially in some sectors in philosophy and theology and patristics. At the same time, with these media productions, since the end of the 50s, meetings with journalists and communicators were organized to see how this message of unity could be trafficked and applied, and what implications it could have in the media world. There was also the desire of well-done communication, a communication that could go beyond the barriers, usual barriers, and could become communication on a global level. So I remember two things. In 1993, the Family Fest, which was one of the first broadcasts in the world with many satellites that gathered 4 million people all over the world. In 3 hours, they had about Chiara Lubich, about the charism of unity, more people than how many people had been heard in all the previous years. So the link-up connection that began in 96 gathers, puts in connection with each other the different communities all over the world. In the year 2000, there was the first meeting that gave life to Net1, and we called ourselves Net1, which was this name, 1,000 communicators, a huge, so many resources, human resources. Nedo Pozzi, the communicator, was the coordinator. He was communication more than doing communication. In 2003, there was a meeting made in the communications with an impressive series of professional implications of the issue, issues that could be taken from the life of Mary and the evangelical, the life of the gospel, despite to the gospel. Then there were the foundations in Brazil, in the Philippines, etc., still connected to Net1. And in 2016, the one who became responsible was Palco Tot, followed by Stefania Tenesini 2 years later. And the main activity that we remember at that time is dialogical journalism. That is a form of journalism that came about with a concrete application in the area of communication.
E poi siamo qui. Oggi Net1, dopo Stefania Tenesini c'è Isabel Gatti, e quindi siamo di nuovo a ripartire.
Grazie davvero a Michele allora per questo suo contributo. E lui stesso ha dato praticamente la parola a Isabel Gatti, e la dottoressa Isabel Gatti è coordinatrice internazionale attualmente di Net1, professoressa e ricercatrice nell'area comunicazione e cambiamento sociale presso l'Istituto Universitario di Sofia. Ti passiamo la parola allora, Isabel.
Es una alegría para mí saludarlos y realmente estoy aquí desde la sede de Medellín y quería comenzar con ustedes reflexionando sobre el título de nuestra presentación, En diálogo hacia la fraternidad. Este interrogante nos convoca y nace justamente en el contexto que el tiempo pandémico nos ha dejado. Hoy celebramos los 25 años del doctorado honoris causa a Chiara Lubich en comunicación. Con varios de nuestra red Net1 nos preguntamos, ¿cómo hacerlo en medio de tantas fracturas sociales? Entre nosotros emergió la convicción de que su legado de vida, que puede sintetizarse en vivir por la unidad, por la fraternidad universal, en cada sector de la vida social, es la necesidad y el clamor de la humanidad de hoy. A los jóvenes, en el año 1990...
So, after the war collapsed, she launched a great criticism because of the unemployment generated by...
Y parafraseando a Jesús, afirmaba que él...
communism, and paraphrasing Jesus, she said, Jesus told them to love each other. So these words sound today like the economic, social, and political challenges and challenges of communication. They show an increase in inequalities. And at the same time, we see the multiple efforts of many people and institutions who in the various fields of communication work for what
Por
some
esto,
people call
elegimos hacer
another
esta memoria
communication
agradecida,
by
mostrando
promoting
algunos de estos ejemplos.
a new kind of
Ya
communication. That is
estamos
why we have
creando una
chosen
nueva cultura.
to
Una cultura que
organize
contiene las
this
diversidades, que busca el
memorial.
encuentro
And a
entre
culture that
todos y son
contains
todos,
differences and
desde un
searches for the
paradigma de
encounter
equidad social.
between the different players
Actualmente,
in terms
muchos
of
de
social equality.
nosotros
Many of us
estamos comprometidos
committed
en
to
ofrecer
offer
caminos
pathways
para
that
diálogos
open
en
a
la
dialogue in
sociedad.
society.
Como Network, nuestra estrategia es
So
que el
our
diálogo
experience
es la
is
herramienta, el método
dialogue, and dialogue is the tool and the method and the strategy that enables
prácticas profesionales
new
de investigación,
synthesis to
en los medios de
guide
comunicación,
our
en las tecnologías de
professional
información,
work,
la inteligencia artificial,
also with
y los
artificial
temas en el
intelligence
campo
and
del
the different
mundo de la
technologies
comunicación social.
and different fields
Esta
of social
convicción nos
application.
impulsa
This
a
commission
incentivar
urges us
un
to
mutuo
encourage
de
a mutual
pertenencia a esta
recognition
familia,
of belonging to the one human
integrando
family
nuestras creencias
by
y
integrating our
costumbres
beliefs
a partir de
and the
los
cultures
principios
on the
inspirados
basis
en
of the
la vida
principles
y en el
inspired to the
pensamiento de
life and
Chiara
thought
Lubich.
of Chiara Lubich.
Ahora
So
compartimos
let
con
us
todos una
continue now
entrevista al
with an
profesor
interview
Ainarón
to
Montien Mbaye,
a
representante de la
professor
Asociación University
representative of the
de
University of
Bangkok,
Bangkok,
que en
who
ese
was
momento era
the martyr of
vicerrector
the
de la
university, and
universidad.
he offered
Fue
this
el gran
award
impulsor
to
del premio
Chiara
Chiara
Lubich.
Lubich. El profesor está siguiendo el programa, pero
This
prefirió
professor is
ofrecernos su conferencia por video. Lo
is following the
saludamos y
program,
le
but
agradecemos
he
por
sends us
este
this
tiempo.
message through a
Muchas
video.
gracias.
Thank you.
Chiara was a person of great charisma. As we have just said, communication plays a central role in her life. Her writings and the language she used with which she expresses her experience contain an entire linguistic repertoire, distinguishing it from traditional Christian language. Chiara is a truly strong-willed and tireless individual, and far from settling for merely fulfilling her role as a founder of Focolare movement, she has turned the role into the instrument for all things spiritual and material to be shared as much as possible. We were inspired by her conviction that it is possible to come to a mutual understanding with all the great religious traditions of humanity through dialogue and respect for each other. The words of Chiara Lubich lead us to look around and act for the benefit of all our brothers and sisters. One of them which we have been practicing is selfishness. It is the most common and yet the most difficult to uproot. It is the tendency to isolate ourselves in our workplace, in our case, St. John's University, to discriminate against and exclude others who are different. This attitude is common and easy to fall into, but has a damaging and chilling effect on human relationships. It blocks the flow of mutual love. The impact of that meeting with Chiara is to bear witness to the welcoming love of Jesus with any neighbor, including those whom our collective social selfishness tends to exclude or marginalize.
So this welcoming love, it is what we can live in the exercise of our humanity that can defeat selfishness. It is the heritage of Chiara Lubich, and it was also her conviction, also for different religions, etc. So we wanted to remember her also through some images in the January 97 with the Lectio Magistralis that Chiara gave on that day. Let's watch and listen. In dialogue towards brotherhood. So, for God, we use the media the best that we can, in the best possible way. It is true. Today, media are sometimes blamed for the evil, the erotism they propose. So considering the bad news that is often done, we can wonder whether we are among those who demonize them or among those who praise them.
เราจะต้องถามตนเองว่าเราจะอยู่ฝ่ายไหนฝ่ายที่ใช้ในทางที่ผิดหรือตรงกันข้ามอยู่ฝ่ายที่ใช้สื่อมวลชนให้เกิดประโยชน์
We might want to be among those who invite others to do a good use of them.
เราปรารถนาเป็นผู้หนึ่งในบรรดาผู้ที่เห็นชอบและเชื้อเชิญให้ทุกคนใช้สื่อในทางที่ดี
But we also want to thank God because He is not absent from the new techniques, from the new discoveries, because God leads history. ที่พระองค์มีบทบาทอย่างแน่นอนในการค้นพบเทคนิคใหม่ๆในฐานะที่พระองค์ทรงเป็นผู้กำกับความเป็นไปต่างๆในประวัติศาสตร์ของเรา So just now when it seems that the world is falling into calamitous wars and the evils that we could not imagine before, is supported by many ideas that speak about unity.
สู่ภัยธรรมชาติสู่ความเลวร้ายซึ่งเราไม่เคยคาดคิดมาก่อนในทางตรงกันข้ามที่ปรากฏขึ้นที่นั่นบ้างที่นี่บ้างเรียกหาความเป็นหนึ่งเดียว
So unity, a sign of the times, where also our movement has a full meaning.
แห่งการเวลาประการหนึ่งซึ่งคณะของเราเห็นชอบด้วย
So just now, when we want a more united world, we claim for universal brotherhood. Now, with this disposition of humanity, we have this powerful means of communication.
ทุกคนกำลังเรียกหาพระดรภาพสากลเป็นเวลานี้แหละที่ได้เกิดมีสื่ออันทรงอานุภาพเกิดขึ้นเพื่อรับใช้มวลมนุษย์
So in all of these, there is certainly the finger of God.
นี่คืองานจากฝีพระหัตถ์ของพระเป็นเจ้านั่นเอง
Eminence, Excellencies, magnificent Rector, ladies and gentlemen, Academic Senate, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for this doctorate that you are conferring to me. I hope that also through it many people can become more aware of what can become in our hands these gifts of modern technique.
ถึงความสำคัญของสื่อสารมวลชนและใช้เทคนิคทันสมัยให้เกิดประโยชน์
And Apostle Paul, if he lived today, would certainly use them.
หากนักบุญเปาโลมีชีวิตอยู่ในยุคนี้สื่อสารมวลชนจะเป็นประโยชน์กับท่านอย่างมากมายทีเดียว
Fake news. This phenomenon, can we do something about it? After these words by Chiara, that touch us deeply, and also very topical words, this concept of the media and the service of universal brotherhood that have been repeated many times. In this so topical vision, we can deepen these topics, and we hear from the Sofia University of Lopia, Giampiero Parolin and Luis Carpino, and from the Republic of Congo, Manuel Bariban. Luis Carpino Jr. is professor of public law in a university in Brazil, and he studies culture of unity with an orientation in sociology at the Sofia University. Bobanga is a journalist with 25 years of experience. He is a member of the Focolare Movement, and he works in the Democratic Republic of Congo as a journalist. Giampiero Parolin is a professor at the Sofia University. He works also for a private enterprise, and he's a researcher at the University of Perugia. So we give you the word, Professor Scarpino. Hello, everyone. I'm grateful for your invitation. I will talk about fake news and democracy. We are living in a crucial moment of polarization among people, especially in politics, and in the absence of an overall sincerity. In this age, what prevails is the culture of disunity. So we have, with you, on to the culture of unity, a basic answer, as Chiara Lubich illuminated us, to accept the reasons of others and live diversity as a richness, and be guided by common values to face concrete problems. And this comes from a speech in 7th May of 1988, and I quote, "People feel create walls among each other, and the fake news industry plays a main role in this sense." But what are fake news? First, the fake news is not the same thing as a wrong news. Fake cannot be translated as wrong or as a lie. So the element should be totally false, guided with intentionality in order to deceive, to mislead the audience from elements of the truth. The information comes from the sources that can be well informed. So if the data correspond to the truth, we have a true information, but the information is not true. We have to doubt whether, one, it was intentional to do a misinformation, or second, if it was intentionally designed to mislead the information and create misinformation. Now, there is also another kind of fake news, those that use articles or real data that are really existing to generate conclusions that are deprived of meaning. So the truth has been distorted, and what was real cannot be recovered. This kind of false news, fake news, that mislead true content is very worrying, because it surprises even very well-educated people. The truth and the post-truth. In 2016 in Oxford, this word, post-truth, was created, which means the creation of a person truth that is independent from facts. What it is convenient for me to believe, even if it is not true. So the content of what is reported is not important, but the fact of how it is reported, even if it is something totally out of any logical sense. So, posterity is strictly connected to popularist politicians that created their own version, the version of themselves. So fake news are a tool that is available of those who take a profit from a fraudulent approach to the news. And these can be well used by engineers, as Giuliano D'Empoli wrote in a famous book. Also in the field of politics, to manipulate the masses, reinforce prejudice, create conflicts, and prevent from a sincere cultural open dialogue. And sometimes even democracy is put at danger, as we saw in the US. In Brazil, Bolsonaro won the elections with a systematic use of fake news. And when he was re-elected, he lost with a minimum gap, just 2 million votes. So he got. So what is caused by fake news has disunited Brazil, and so how can we give an approach that can improve the culture of unity? We have to act in an urgent way in this direction. Okay, thank you, Professor Scarpino. Very stimulating what you said. And now we give the floor to our friend of the Democratic Republic of Congo. First of all, we have the note that in most of our country, the remuneration of journalists is the retribution what journalists are paid is not proportional to the service they give to the community. And sometimes there's even no wage. That's opened the way to the traffic and the spreading of, and even more in the communication, to the benefit of the best offerers, especially the politicians in all the sectors that were far away from morality. For them, all means are good to get to this. This is the place to specify that the politics we talk about is not as the best form of love, but just as a business for those who practice it. In this context, starting from this sad reality, another one comes about, that is, if information communication was already a mean to abate the barriers among people, even it is the best way to eat something. Social networks got to create an obstacle, and they don't take care of this, and no one has a control on this. In most cases, the sensationalism prevails. while professional journalists sometimes are even weakened because to collect and verify information becomes a long process. So hundreds of thousands of people who work with fake news define themselves as communicators, as influencers, etc. And they make a lot of money. So even welcoming with favor the efforts of the government and the other organizations that lead a fight against this plague of the century, where the new technologies of information communication go along with the petty crime and immorality, we have to recognize that the laws in general are not up to the challenges to face, and the victims are countless nowadays. So beyond the individuals, this cancer is devouring whole populations and nations in the planet. The popular history that derives from it feeds the fire and brings to violence, to divisions, to murders and to wars. I'm thinking of the management of the crisis of COVID-19 and the world economics that is in crisis, the oil crisis, and because of the war between Russia and Ukraine. I'm thinking of Africa. The Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda look at each other for a lack of a real brotherhood. And how fake news encourage even people to violence as a remedy. So with the father of Equality, we can say that brotherhood instead offers a surprising possibilities. It enables to reconcile the value experiences that otherwise would be turned into irremediable conflicts. So the basic issue is that of personal judgment. So what do I usually share? What can I share on the net, on internet? What can I offer to others? Or what can be the direct or indirect consequences of what I write or say? So 25 years after this doctorate honoris causa to Chiara Lubich, a dialogue with the brotherhood becomes the value that has to be preferred. Everyone must be responsible for this and take the initiative in all possible ways.
Grazie anche allora.
Thank you, Emmanuel Madibanga.
Ricordiamo solo brevemente per chi non sapesse.
And for those who don't know, you can choose the language by clicking on interpretation with a small globe. You can click there and choose the language. Please, Professor Parolin. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Net1 for this opportunity to have a dialogue between communicators and economies. And my contribution will be a small account on what enterprises do on fake news. Enterprises communicate for different audience with labels they put on products, with mandatory financial information on financial statements, and with non-mandatory information on environmental facts, with institutional communication, advertising, and marketing. Think about what everybody does when we read labels. Labels often make promises that they cannot keep. When we buy snacks, we are only presented with the nutritional benefits, maybe we read that product is sugar-free, but less sugar means more sweeteners that are detrimental for the health. There is a regulation in Europe that binds companies to state information clearly, and therefore it is possible to do fast-checking, which is often carried out by consumer associations, specialized magazines and investigative journalism, like the Italian TV program Report. But on other important issues, like the environmental impact, there is a lack of reference legislation. So some companies can make green claims, that is, making claims about their sustainable practices without providing comprehensive information on their environmental footprint. So, to quote Professor Artieri, they do some kind of pollution, information pollution. Companies, on the other hand, provide financial information and social and environmental reporting based on numbers and facts. But, however, these documents are thought for an audience of experts. And interestingly enough, the GRI, that is Global Reporting Initiative, that is used to measure the activity of enterprises, and it allows comparison among different areas of the world, is used by 72% of the 250 largest companies in the world across 52 countries. And they provide information on materials, energy, water, biodiversity, pollution, emissions, waste, and the impact of suppliers. This framework shows that authenticity of information is increasingly resulting from corporate social responsibility and good citizenship of the enterprises. In this perspective, even advertising and marketing should also, and to some extent we can see this happening, should also choose non-manipulative communication to prevent citizens, consumers, from being induced into a culture of fiction. It is no coincidence that the world of entertainment, which is itself a business, is often a corporate communication channel. A culture of accountability, of authenticity in information can help to mitigate phenomena such as populism and ideological polarization by creating a true and verifiable information system. Because, as Joseph Borrell said, the EU High Representative, information is the fuel of democracy. If information is poor quality, democracy will be poor quality too. Information, as Professor Danovi says, is a tool that connects the opposite poles within powers and rights. And thank you for your attention. Thank you, Professor Parolin. At the Sophia Institute in Loppiano, there is an on-site seminar on this issue, on fake news. So we would like to invite everybody to follow the activity that is being done on social media. Let's go to another challenge that we want to tackle today. The role of communication in social and political polarization So we will have three guests. Mombossi is Congolese. She's a university professor. Congo, she teaches communication, and she teaches at the University of Africa. Thank you, and greetings from Africa. We are connected from different countries. In Nairobi, many people are connected, but also Mozambique, Cape Verde, Nigeria, and other countries. What is the future for a multicultural society, a multi-ethnical and multi-religious society? What system can be used? The world is losing diversity, and this is a menace to the whole society, to the whole capacity of societies to provide for common public goods that make a healthy society. And this, according to a series of studies by several professors on polarization, and these are professors from Stanford University in the United States. June 19th, 2004, Chiara Lubich was in London, and she was speaking at a Congress on the future of a society, a multicultural, multi-ethnical society. And she starts with an analysis of the world at the beginning of the 2000, short after the September the 11th. But she analyzes the complexity and the challenges of common life and the encounter with the other people from different races and religions. And Chiara looks at the world and reads her own history. She tells her daily experience, which is also the experience of the members of the Focolare movement that she founded and that are inspired by the charism of unity. The movement unites peoples from different religions, cultures, ideas, and points of view. And they together are a community. And she looks at the spirituality that she proposes. She proposes us to believe in the love of God and to love the other with that love that sees the other like somebody that is just equal to us, and a lifestyle, and to embrace a lifestyle that is based on rejoicing in other people's joys. And she says, this is the attitude that helps us to establish true dialogue with others. The dialogue means sharing opinions with sincere love with other people, even if they have different ideas, in order to find some connection, to reach an agreement that stops fights and incomprehension. And this dialogue is today more than ever necessary if we want to stop the big evils of today, of the society of today. Thank you, Lilian Mugombossi. And Paltov is a professor of social communication, and he's responsible for different courses at the Sofia University on communication. And after him, there will be another guest by a journalist with 25 years experience with a master on communication and director of the on an important communication magazine. Thank you. Hi to everybody, and I would like to say that I'm so glad that we can talk today. I think Net One is a workshop of experimentation in which we try to understand how to put into practice the ideas of Chiara, and I would like to go deep into one of the proposals by Chiara that I think could have many positive effects on our work. First of all, love in dialogue. From the point of view of communication, we have three fundamental abilities required for constructive dialogue: the ability to enter into relation, the ability to reflect, and the ability to collaborate. Relational ability enhances social peace and creates the conditions for the exercise of two more abilities: reflective ability that can lead us to a shared anthropological vision and social ethics, and then collaborative capacity enables us to solve problems and progress together. The relational capacity is also important. As Pope Francis says, he invites us to develop a new culture of encounter, and he invites us to a new approach to relationships, getting to know each other, listening to each other, valuing the richness of the other, which requires us to abandon the desire to change the other or persuade them or control them, and to instead embrace a generative and caring attitude. And then there is the reflective capacity, which leads us to a new culture of thought. It expresses the feature of a mind that is not a passive consumer of ideas imposed by others, but which independently relates to the facts of the outside world and to those who behave in a similar manner. And here we can speak of the need for a mentality that is not simply open, but growth-oriented, in contrast to a fixed and closed mentality. And then there is the capacity for collaboration, for a culture of collaboration. And dialogue is not made around a table. It leads us to action. In authentic dialogue, reflection and action go hand in hand to transform the world. In this perspective, the objective is to reach a shared opinion, a necessary shared opinion, which is necessary for common action. And here I would like to quote Chiara Lubich. Her words were written in 1949, and she says, in heaven, saying means giving. When I love a neighbor, I create love. But on earth, this happens gradually. First, I make myself one with them. That is, I begin with the unity of charity until they begin to love too. Then I move on to the unity of truth. Then we start to be one. Whereas in heaven, all this is done all at once. I believe this passage is particularly important for us to understand how we can move in the socio-cultural context of our days. And at least in the European culture, respect and inclusion for the other person are very much stressed. And often the truth is lost in the anxiety of losing the relationship. Instead, Lubich invites us to walk towards dialogue that leads us to the truth that is love and love that is truth at the same time. And I would like to just mention an experience that we had on dialogue. In the framework of this war that is happening in Ukraine, our effort is to put together Ukrainians and Russians and start a process in which they can recognize themselves. And many said that this is impossible in this stage because problems are really, really deep. But we learned from Chiara that we need to do what is impossible, do what human beings cannot solve, but that can solve with the help of God. So we had a round table the other day with people from Ukraine and Russia, and we started a dialogue. And they had to dialogue, starting from this question: what is your suffering? And each and every one of them talked from their soul, and everybody was transformed after this dialogue. So really, thank you. Thank you, Professor, for this last experience. We would like to see how what is happening in Loppiano, and so let's see what's happening.
Forse possiamo chiedere la parola a qualcuno a Kinshasa intanto.
Is there anybody from Loppiano?
Intanto approfitto anche questi pochi minuti. Tra poco avremo.
We will have a break shortly, but if you want to send comments in the chat, just feel free to do it. We will not have time for a longer interaction today, but please send your comments. Feel free to do that, and we would like you to say just a word, a few words on the topics that you would like to be treated in the future. And we will also put in the chat the email address for you to stay in contact with us.
Silvano?
Sì.
C'est Kinshasa ou le Bénin? Moi, je suis au Bénin.
Guy. Prego, avanti.
I am in Benin. I'm not in Kinshasa.
Merci.
Merci pour la parole.
Thank you for the floor. And the dialectic between information is that information is the content, and the object is the interchange between, is communication between two people, two or more people.
Forse possiamo cedere la parola a Guy. Probabilmente era previsto l'intervento in video, ma ha potuto essere qui tra noi.
So we will now give the floor to Guy. Thank you. I think this topic, communication and polarization, political and social polarization evokes four intertwined notions that we should not necessarily try to define separately, but rather place them in the context of social experience in order to come up with ideas that could contribute to the improvement of the city we live in. When analyzing the work of certain media today, we have realized how they are very much in the path of powers that be, religious men, secret societies, and world influencers. And thanks to information and communication technologies, the role of the media is being diverted to serve the interests of the few. Principles and values are being trampled underfoot, and this is a real pity. I personally think that community life must be assessed in the light of what our societies have become. They have been transformed into jungles by their inhabitants in the pursuit of personal interests and the will to prevail without caring for other people. Communication today is abused and no longer conveys the truth. Instead, it contributes to the distortion of facts to serve causes that are often political, bringing consequences for the society. The most numerous populations, who are often the least informed about technological developments and the principles and theories of governance, bear the brunt of this by offering themselves as an easy bait to their leaders. As Catholic journalists and communicators, we have created a melting pot of unions and associations to train and support each other, and above all, to contribute to the construction of our countries in a different way. Last August, we were in Togo. There were 80 of us reflecting on terrorism. The Gospels and the messages of the Holy Father during the days of social communication are precious sources of information for us to better pursue our missions. And the work set up by Chiara Lubich, which conveys values and a way of life that is very useful for our world. The image of men and women committed to the new humanity, aiming to put into practice the message of the gospel, to irrigate the structures of society, to renew them and fuel hope and trust, should serve as an example for next generations. Each one should be a sign of hope and of the presence of God for others. The world of politics, above all, must listen to the expectations of citizens in order to turn these expectations into political projects and seek solutions together. This is what I think on this topic, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, Constant. We would like to hear somebody from Loppiano.
I want to thank Professor China Rong for his talk, for his message, because inspired by the charisma of Chiara, the impact of the message of Chiara to him was very strong. That really he gave this award to Chiara, and the university gave this award, and because he saw that it is a means to promote dialogue and brotherhood, especially in the Asian context, wherein there is a diversity of cultures and religions, because we know that the world religions were born there, and particularly in Thailand, and there is a strong presence of Buddhism. And I would like to thank him for taking time to answer these questions. And really, also what he stressed on inclusion, because I think there is so much a call of inclusion, especially in these days. There is so much polarization, and there are so many things happening in the society in search of awareness of self, of identity, and people are really seeking for inclusion. And I would like to thank Professor China Rong for this for his call for inclusion towards fraternity and universal brotherhood.
Grazie.
Thank you.
José.
From Kinshasa,
abbiamo anche il collegamento.
we have somebody, we have Prince.
Kinshasa, chi siete?
Is there anybody? Kinshasa?
Oui, nous attendons, nous avons la liaison. Nous avons la liaison. Oui. Merci pour la parole. Merci pour la parole. La dialectique
Thank you. The dialectic between information and communication is that information is the content, the essential content. Unfortunately, the audio is not perfect, and it is not possible for translators to understand. We have in a society of communication, we are living in a society of communication. We communicate every day of our life, both in the professional and private sphere. And social media made this even faster. And communication has become faster and faster and more interactive. We think of communicating with politicians, with CEOs, and within churches and hospitals, among artists and influencers. Communication is crucial. This communication can have different shapes. Negotiations, for example, between Russia and Ukraine, between Congo and Rwanda, and so on. Or it can be a search for new projects. And too often, communication boils down to our means of communication, like emails or brochures, leaflets, and so on. But in order to have a real communication, we need to distinguish the content and the means. As the leader of a community, our leadership should not be corrupted. In this sense, communication can create favorable situations for dialogue or change, and dialogue calls on the actors of communication to be transformed into what they really are through sincere listening through humbleness and mutual respect. Thank you very much.
Grazie a voi, merci.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Dall'Argentina,
From Argentina, Maria Ines says that the experience of dialogue through the suffering of the war that Professor Parolin talked about was an experience of communication. Was also an experience of communication. I had an experience of communication with a journalist, and that was really new to me. So we will now have a 5-minute break. Also thinking about the translators that are helping us understanding each other. Let's see each other again in 5 minutes.
Start the music, stop the war! Start the music, stop the war! Start the music, stop the war! Start the music, stop the war!
Eccoci qui nuovamente.
Hello, here we are again. We are back after this break. Now, the block that will begin now has to do with communication and peace culture, which is a topic that we feel very important, very topical today. We'll hear about that from Professor Cristina Montoya, Professor Aldo Quiroga, and Vicente Peña, who is professor together with his daughter. Cristina Montoya will talk from Medellin, Colombia. She's doctor in science of communication at the Salesian University of Rome, professor of generative communication at the Sofia University in Lopiano, and her activity of research is focused on generative communication and communication for global change. Aldo Quiroga is a journalist, a professional professor from Brazil, and he will introduce his contribution. Then Professor Vicente de Carpeña, also from Colombia, a journalist, master in development and territory at the Pontifical Javier University of Medellin, co-founder of Enterprise of Active Communication with González. He will accompany by his daughter, Mariana González, Bolivarian University, and author of other initiatives. And she won an award for the Councilor of the Municipality of Medellin. Now we want to remind you, before giving the floor to the speakers of this block, please send us commentaries or ideas with a sentence or a few words, what issues you'd like to be dealt with in the future in these Zoom meetings. Now I give the floor to Medellin, to Professor Cristina Montoya. So thank you very much, Silvano. I am a researcher and a teacher of communication, and we greet you from a place in the very heart of the city of Medellin, an innovative city, technological, but also a city whose streets seem and whose colors show an unceasing search for peace and social cohesion. In this sense, it was vital for many of us, for those what Chiara Lubich emphasized in her speech years ago, that is thinking of communication and use it as a tool for constructing communication and for communion. And this marked our selection and generated in many of us the exercise of communication, and by listening with attention also all our colleagues who talk about the pain of solidarity and a new narrative that can privilege not so much the voices of experts, but rather this small, sometimes imperceptible voice that can be inclusive for the media, and thus contributing to the construction, not in nostalgic terms, but as a possibility that we are given to use our words, to walk through communication meant, for example, to prefer the broadcast, the community broadcast, the alternative voices for social change, but in a special way, what Professor Todt spoke about, the relationship to the center on an institutional and the social level. Personally, I meet in this context around us a scenario that is favorable to develop what we call that what is part of the human nature, and a strong commitment for the new generations that challenge the tendency to exclusion that we find in our culture, that mainly responds to the need for communication with colleagues and friends of the academy. We began to read again to interpret our city, and we giving a preference to the way to be an icon of war, an icon on drug trafficking, and turn it to as an icon of incommunicability, and create a narration based on respect, on mutual respect. So after this connection, we'll go to walk with a group of young people in the very center of our city, with this aim of discovering what are the possibilities of peace in our milieu, and how can we give a different narration of this. Thank you for listening to us in such an international event, and have a good continuation. Thank you very much, Professor Montoya. And before giving the floor to the contribution of Professor Aldo Quiroga, I was forgetting about thanking Enrico Sabene, musician and author of what we appreciated during the clip we appreciated during the break. He's author of many things on television, and he's a friend of Network, so we thank very much Enrico Sabena. Now I give the floor to the video contribution of Aldo Quiroga. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Aldo Quiroga. I'm a journalist, university professor, researcher in communication, married and father of two fantastic people. I thank for your invitation, the responsibility to reflect a little bit on communication culture of peace, starting from the Brazilian and Latin American reality. During this event, several colleagues brought ideas on the most urgent themes in our field: fake news, social network, polarization in our society. Realities that make more difficult, at the same time more urgent, the vocation to communicate as a bridge towards peace. Personally, I do research and work on communication from the perspective of journalism, and from here I understand communication as a possibility to create encounters, bringing the necessary information so that people can understand the world, can take better decisions, can know the reasons of the challenges they face, and imagine the way to overcome them. I think we can contribute with the connection among people. This is a pun with the term that the owners of power like so much, the big tech. But connectivity I refer to is exploiter. Connecting people at the role of communication, something that goes much beyond the like or a mention in the stories. Connection I refer to cannot be monetized. in financial terms. I speak from a nation that suffered hardly the effects of fake news and their spreading by the social network that contribute very much to fight this evil. So this the consequent polarization that derives from the intensive radicalization of the social networks, families and friends who split, people who are persecuted, and cases of physical violence against those who have a different think in a different way. Aggression to journalists increased by 70% in the last year, a scenario that demands responses to communicators. But the response can be the continuity of our work. I confess that many of us have the impression to make ice melt, or just push a stone that insists in going back to the point of origin. But these professionals face the new situation and become aware in the coherent, responsible way to live their vocation and communicate and contribute to fight against these challenging times. There is no peace without instruments of communication. The world turns that into weapons, but we use that like a craftsmanship, like workers, like the bread maker who uses his oven. So communication is the opportunity to get close to people, to defend rights, to advocate rights, to reaffirm the truth, to call into question the powers, to denounce the violation of laws, to indicate new ways and promote ideas. So we mean human beings as the center of meaning, to be at the service of private interests or in the service of economic power, ideological, political power, that becomes a manipulating force that can guide society through dark pathways. But the words of Chiara and the magisterium of the Church about the communication are an appeal not only for those who work in this area, but to the whole society, in order not to accept a communication that does not praise humanity, but is deviated from our primary vocation to the unity that places one against the other. So thank you for this opportunity and have a good one. Thank you, Aldo Quiroga. Several messages are getting through, and now I give the floor to Medellin. A greeting to all. It was an experience that was born from relational communication and how we can build something that can help to change our behavior on a daily basis. The initiative we wanted to introduce is Casa Rota. It means the broken house, and it is a university project on teaching studies. So how can we wonder how and the role of women is very important. So how we can work in terms of education, in terms of health, etc. So I give the floor to Mariana now.
Bueno, hola a todos. Nosotras partimos de un juego de metáforas sobre el
We work for the role of women to break the glass ceiling that prevents us from having access to the main role in society. There are so many inequalities in terms of inopportunity in work, and this glass ceiling prevents women from developing. So we try to increase the role of education for women,
Allí se visualizaban cómo aportaban las
and
dificultades,
you
los
can
rechazo,
see
cómo
what are the
estos podían cambiar.
difficulties we
Se hizo
face
primero con habitantes urbanos y
in
rurales para
both
comprobar
in
los resultados
urban
y comprender
and
cómo se reproduce
rural
la brecha de desigualdad.
environment.
Este proyecto fue ganador de la
And
convocatoria de la
see
Secretaría de Cultura de la
how
Alcaldía de
the
Medellín
Secretariat
por
of
medio de investigación
Culture of
social,
Medellin
con lo que
could
pudimos
do
ampliar el
something
ejercicio a
concrete
una comunidad educativa
for
diversa.
women, also to help
¿Qué nos
them
mostraron los
study in
resultados? Nos
university,
mostraron que las condiciones que crean
because
igualdad y
we have
desigualdad
seen
estructurales
so many
comienzan con una idea sobre la
inequalities in
capacidad, cómo se
society,
normaliza la desigualdad en el acceso a las oportunidades, por lo que el cambio de imaginario
and
sobre la mujer
we
incide en la
can see
transformación social y el
social
acceso real a
transformation.
oportunidades. La paz
Peace
está en la
is in
cultura
culture,
y
can be
fomenta
shown
en las
in the
actitudes y
attitudes and
comportamientos. Así
behavior
tiene la fuerza de las acciones y el
and
poder de las palabras.
the power of work.
Muchas gracias. Grazie mille da Medellin.
Thank you very much, Medellin, for this experience.
Possiamo passare
And now we can shift to the next segment. Digital culture and brotherhood. So, very unique theme, this of digital culture and brotherhood. We'll hear from that from the correspondent in New York of Il Sole 24 Ore, that is an Italian newspaper specialized in economics, Maddalena Maltese, also representative of NGO. After her, Franco Ropelato, president of the Association of Net1 and consultant with a wide professional experience as an analyst, programmer, IT planner, and database. And Marianne Abjoujo, the Lebanese engineer of communication. She works in her country in the field of technology and IT in the social sector. Maddalena, I give you the floor. A greeting from the US. I want to know if we could begin with a 20 seconds video recording. So the press agency for which I work a few months ago as a work on finance and politics and economics asked me to work on this topic, and particularly they asked me to study the investment and the profits of a real estate company. So one day, the profits of this company were over $500 million, and by the end of the year, they should go about the double. It's called the Sunderland, and they trust themselves to banks like or technological companies, but also fashion companies like Gucci, and thanks to them, they buy lands, they buy buildings, and they organize fashion shows and concerts. But the central land does not exist in the real world. It only exists in the metaverse. It is the virtual world that will introduce us into the new borders of the internet. In the metaverse, the virtual space that is not only managed by also by Microsoft, by Google, etc., are investing in it a lot. And people act as avatars, as digital images of ourselves in this moment, more similar to puppets. But these avatars, among them, they can work, they can interact, make acquisition, attend schools, and even walk on the moon and decide to do meditation in a monastery in Tibet. Metaverse is not something far from us. It is an augmented reality that entered our families through the video games and also through 3D exhibitions. And for economists and financial experts, the economy that will develop in the metaverse within 2030 can be valid $13 trillion. In the metaverse, the singer Irene Grandi organized a concert with 70 million fans, avatars, who could interact with her on the stage. And always in the metaverse, a US pastor, DJ Soto, inaugurated a church, and here I quote him, saying it is a spiritual community attended by avatars who celebrate the love of God. Also, the Vatican museums are working to transfer 800 artworks into a digital gallery, anti-theft, that will make them closer to the metaverse. What does mean metaverse for us journalists? How they challenges us to this new border of communication. The various communication group created an office in the metaverse where clients and collaborators meet for briefings, presentations, and the exhibition of presentations of projects that they're working on. In the metaverse, there is an audience that wants news, but they want them interactive. And today, thanks to the artificial intelligence and to augmented reality and to learning machines, it is enough we point our mobile phone on a picture, that from this picture can take life a whole story that we can all live directly with the protagonist. So the news can become interactive and an experience. So the metaverse challenges us as communicators to do storytelling, experiential, that does not only go to the teaching, but together with the readers, we can experience that in a way, in a world that is new and different. Certainly, the metaverse challenges us in the field of sustainability, of journalistic products, how we can finance and make survive the editorial companies, publishing companies, but the questions asked also on what objects can inhabit it and what not, like weapons, can they exist in the metaverse or not? I was very impressed by what Chiara Lubich said about the media in the initial video recording of this event we are living together. She challenged us to turn these tools of communication into gifts. So what can these gifts become, and so including the metaverse, when in our hands? In the old journalist schools, people always say that the news can be found by consuming the soles of our shoes. Maybe in the metaverse, it will be our avatars that will have to consume these shoes and tell the complexity by keeping always alive the appeal of Chiara Lubich to the vocational media to unite people even in virtual reality of the metaverse. Thank you. Thank you, Maddalena.
Maddalena, anche questo è molto nuovo, no? Si avvicina.
This is also very new. It is getting closer to the modernity of every day. Now I give the floor to Franco Ropelato. And so, hello everyone. I speak from our working group that began in the Forum Humanity 4.0. During that meeting, Professor Chadet, young consultant on technologies, had launched the proposal of the digital oath, a sort of oath of Hippocrates for journalists, so to establish principles that are universally accepted and subscribe a commitment and not to go beyond that borders. It is clear that new technologies bring with themselves, besides fantastic opportunities for dialogue and democracy, also many dangers, especially for the poor, those who have no power. We can think, for example, of some consequences of the artificial intelligence to the drones and the capability of control on citizens. For this reason, it will be we journalists of IT commits us, like the experience of medical doctors, as the oath of Hippocrates that frees doctors from any conditioning and binds them to the obligation of the respect for life and for people. But not only, because for a good professional who is attentive to the dialogue with the collaborators, the oath gives the opportunity open to third parties, transforming this dialogue into what we define as a trialogue, the dialogue between two parts, but that takes account of others, and especially the poorest. So not only we create powerful instruments, but we find ourselves enriched of meaning, because more fraternal, more human, more in line with the vocation of the media to the unity of people. Now I give the floor to Maria, who will give us more details about our proposal.
Thank you, Franco. I will give you a little bit more details about this in English now. So we all know, and we've been talking about this now, that digital systems today, they have taken a comprehensive and universal power turn. Just a second. As they increase pace and they go faster and faster in the field of powerful decision making, which is one of the most just a second before you move into the first slide, which is so the powerful decision making that today's digital systems have is what is the most scary, I think. This obviously it affects directly or indirectly any living being on the human beings, animals, and the whole planet. Today, governments, educational and cultural institutions worldwide, they're trying to regulate how these can be used and how they have to be created. We hear a lot more about ethics in the news with Google. It has become also a major headline in tech mega companies and also in smaller ones. And maybe you've heard many people around us and users, they're getting curious about this, and it's not uncommon for clients to choose their providers based on their ethical principles. Nor is it uncommon to hear about companies creating ethical boards. It's becoming more and more trendy, let's say. In this context, and also what we have heard, if we go back, please, by one slide. In this context, we introduced a digital oath. It's a list of ethical principles. If you can go back with the slide, please. Back. It's a list of ethical principles that we put together. It should be common to all peoples. Any actor in the digital system can adopt it as his like a Magna Carta. It's kind of a bottom-up approach that ensures that every step in any digital system built is ethical. It's guaranteeing, therefore, that the stated values reach the end systems and the end populations. With the team, we have issued the first draft, and the approach we used, as you can see now on the slide, and it involves any person creating or designing digital systems in general, being hardware or software. It takes into consideration individuals and communities of all cultures. It takes into consideration fundamental values of the human being, and all the values mentioned by the several ethical and technical entities for design and creation of digital systems. In the EU, the Vatican has everywhere they're trying to put ethical and technical values for these systems. It also takes into account sustainability and environmental impact of system with the SDGs that the UN has stated. Our approach promotes a three-way approach. It's divided in three. It has the first part is a set of guardrails with the non-maleficent pledges. It then lists some guidelines like that we call the beneficial pledges, and then it gives a little bit of self-responsibility and participation. Now, if we can move to the next slide, we can show you a little bit what we thought about the first part, which is the guardrails. The list of non-maleficent pledges do not, like in the Hippocrates Oath, there's the first part which says, do no harm. So this is doing no harm in the digital world, where we pledge, the pledges regard human rights, dignity, freedom, privacy, the main values that are mentioned for the digital systems, that the systems have to be trustworthy, robust, safe, secure, resilient, etc. It has to be the system, they have to be accountable, they have to be transparent, they have to be explainable. And then they also have to be inclusive, they have to be just, fair, and unbiased. Of course, we add here a pledge to develop sustainable digital systems in terms of material usage, and so do not do harm with our systems to the environment too. On the next slide, we pledge, it's a pledge which is more like a set of guidelines. How can we go now? Where can we go? How can we build positive digital systems? We pledge then to put the human being at the center, to promote the common good, to promote equality between everyone, between the peoples, between the individuals, promote solidarity, especially with the most vulnerable, the poor, the fragile. And also we pledge to help solve ecological challenges, because we know that digital systems are very powerful in that too. And then the last part is about self-responsibility, participation. We can be responsible, we can be, let's say, participate and see that if something is not abiding, if something is not like we want it, we can ask, we can keep informed, we can maybe flag systems, we can stay in, ask around, we can just be active in this, active and participate in building this culture that we want, also through this oath. And eventually also be accountable for any breach from our side, which is like, this is like a big promise that we are making. And the last part would be in the next slide, the open, this project that we're working on. It has a lot of open questions. What's about the accountability? How can the updates be brought into this, the ethical parts? How can that be done? How will we roll it out? How will it start? It will be academic rollout, maybe we start with that. Can the companies also have certifications? We're very eager to hear from you if you're in the digital systems world. Write us an email if you have some feedback, or to the Net1 committee. And that's it for my part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne and Franco. This is new for many of us, but it's really, really interesting. So let's move to the last part of this afternoon together. Some audiovisual products which we will hear from Annalisa Piccardi. Annalisa started as a assistant director, and she's an editor. She worked on a very important workshop she will talk about. Then Saverio D'Ercole has been working in the sector for 25 years, and we will hear from them what they have to say. So Annalisa, please. Hello, I am Annalisa. I am married to Eduardo. We have 2 children. I am a freelance editor since 1998. I've been collaborating with several Italian networks. I met Chiara Lubich in 2003. Back then, I was working for a RAI production, which is the Italian public TV, called Il mio Novecento, My 20th Century. And I was called to edit a documentary on Chiara. I must say that back then I was quite anti-clerical, but I was so fascinated by Chiara and what she was saying that I could not believe that Chiara was a Catholic. Of course, later on I found out that she was indeed. However, her words somehow gave answers to the anxieties I used to carry within me. Humanly and professionally speaking, I used to feel very lonely at the time, because in our working environment, it was really difficult to find a positive way to communicate in order to build satisfactory human relationships. In the following years, I accidentally met Paolo Balduzzi, who proposed that I participated in Punto Lab, a workshop for the community, a communication workshop founded here in Rome by a group of entertainment workers. There at Punto Lab, I felt at home and I found my place. What is Punto Lab? Let's watch a video. Everything started in 2010 when a friend of mine said, "Come to Punto Lab." When we started, there were 10 of us, maybe 15. We realized that many problems that we had were linked to miscommunication. And the challenge was exploring the world of communication with capital C and understanding its mechanisms and using them to enhance daily communication among us, maybe the most important one. It was very mixed project. There was journalism, drama, many different things that gave us the possibility to analyze some a space or reality that we hadn't thought of, because it's a civic laboratory workshop of communication. It was useful to understand the lies of communication, because we were studying the hidden mechanisms of communication, and we would show them to the people that came to us. News makes people feel lonely, and telling them in a different way helps us understand that communication exists only if it's ours. And constructing the communication step by step was an important thing. Punto Lab was about stopping, to reason, to understand, and then start again together. Very often, the nice things come to an end, but Punto Lab is still here. Do we really communicate?
Vengo dentro a prenderti, da solo disarmato, innamorato, tu devi arrenderti.
Over the years, we have dealt with many aspects of our time. How women are portrayed on TV, reality shows, the economy intended as a system based on possession or sharing, the use of social media, and so on. In recent years, we have also been collaborating on other projects on communication. I would like to say that I personally see in it the fulfillment of that intuition that I had in the meeting with Chiara in 2003. That is, that Net1 is really called to be a vanguard of communication in view of universal fraternity. And we at Punto Lab are working hard on this. And our last collaboration was for this year's United World Week. We collaborated with Stefania Bogo, Sara Mellone, Tamara Pastorelli, and Edoardo Zaccagnini. I'd like to leave you with this short video we created to introduce the week. Thank you. Maybe never before human beings realized so clearly what their impact can be on the planet. After the pandemic, in the effort of responding to the climate crisis that is a challenge for the balance on Earth, some men still want war. But in the meantime, despite all this, a really powerful force that goes towards life never stops working, and its fruits we will start to bear very soon. Every year, the United World Week is here to remind us of that. 27 years old when it started, a genocide was just over in Rwanda, and there were still bombs in many areas. It was not easy to talk about fraternity, but it was there that during a Gen Fest in Rome, where many young people gathered, an idea was born to establish a day every year to dedicate to a united world. Fraternity never stopped. In situations of collective sufferings, it became more and more a means of caring for other people. It healed many wounds, solved many problems, and brought to life positive relationships. Those who experienced it know it. We can help the world. We're here to know each other and to celebrate. Welcome, wherever you are, to the United World Week 2022. Everybody, hand in hand. Yours will be the victory. Be sure of that. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Saverio D'Ercole. As you could hear from Annalisa, we too, audiovisual operators, are part of Net1. We are a network of professionals operating all over the world. There are many professional figures, directors, actors, many professionals who work in television and for the cinema. We believed in the media project by Chiara that was born in 2000 in Castel Gandolfo, and I was also present. And we still try to do our part to carry on Chiara's dream, also through television and cinema. This is not an easy path. You've heard it. It's not just for us, for everybody. And sometimes it's even a painful path because we find ourselves alone in our working environments and in a context that does not always choose quality content and responsibility, but often prefers to seek audience and provocation. As Silvano said, I have been working in television drama for 26 years, and I have known the ideal of Chiara since I was 11 years old, and the values that this idea transmitted to me, which are also those which animate Net1, have certainly trained me to work in a team, to favor the meeting and dialogue between different professionals, directors, script writers, actors, broadcasters, representatives, and so on. It taught me to be productive and constructive, to withstand crisis situations, and to trust in hope. And it gave me the joy of bringing out the best in all those professionals involved in a film or a TV series, and also the desire to seek in each project something that can build a better world. A few years ago, I had the privilege of working on a film about Chiara. And I have to be honest, it had always been a dream of mine to one day be able to tell that story that I had heard and imagined a thousand times. However, when the opportunity arose, I immediately realized that I had everything to lose. I could disappoint the expectations of Chiara's many children. I could expose the company I work for to failure. Or I could lose my professional lucidity due to my emotional involvement in the story, and even compromise my relationship with the colleagues involved. From the very first moment, I simply tried to entrust. I simply tried to do my part and listen. And I can say with conviction that I witnessed a journey that was somehow miraculous. After a long series of meetings with the others, we chose to tell the story of the first years, the war years. Indeed, we felt that the answers to so many of today's questions went back to those early days, which were a moment of foundation and of prophecy. Chiara discovered that God is love precisely under the bombs, that is, in the darkest hours of humanity, in its deepest wound. And God also teaches her that there is no way to begin again, to start again, except through forgiveness. We just heard about the political and social polarization and our desire to work on a communication that wants to help to heal wounds and rifts. And speaking of which, given the current events we are experiencing, and not only there, also in many other parts of the world, I would like to show you an excerpt from the film about forgiveness. It's a true episode recounted by Chiara Lubich, Chiara's brother, in a little book entitled Chiara, My Sister. In a time when Trento was occupied by Nazis, a fascist hierarch showed little flexibility with the partisans and with citizens and was an accomplice of the Germans. When the war ended, he feared for his life and turned to Chiara.
Chi è? Chiara, io non apro.
Non entrare, ti prego. Se mi trovano mi impiccano. Ines e mia moglie sono fuggite giorni fa. Io non so dove andare. Se mi trovano mi ammazzano. È sicuro che mi ammazzano. Chiara, tuo fratello è responsabile del tribunale per i delitti di guerra. Forse se provi a dirgli una buona parola.
Una buona parola? L'avete messa voi quando Chiara ve l'ha chiesto per suo fratello?
Ma io non potevo far niente. Suo fratello invece ascolta.
Mio fratello segue solo la sua coscienza. È stato torturato, ha visto morire i suoi compagni. Come credete che possa essere clemente?
Lo so, hai ragione. È per questo che mi sono rivolto a te. Ti prego, non mi abbandonare. Ti prego. Scusate.
Aspettate.
Buongiorno. Salve, buongiorno. Allora? Di cosa mi devi parlare?
So quello che ti hanno fatto. Le torture che hai subito. Vieni.
E lui cosa ci fa qui?
Non aveva altro posto in cui nascondersi.
Avresti dovuto denunciarlo.
Lo sto facendo. Adesso, con te. Io ti conosco. So che lo arresterai solo se sei convinto che possa avere un processo.
Ah sì? Il soldato ucciso davanti a noi in ospedale l'ha avuto un processo. E i partigiani torturati e uccisi l'hanno avuto un processo loro.
No, non lo hanno avuto. Ma tu sei diverso. Tu non vuoi essere complice di un'esecuzione sommaria. E nel tuo cuore sai che non c'è futuro senza perdono.
There is no future without forgiveness. A message of great topicality, and which is a premise for universal brotherhood, and that also applies to our daily life. Thank you very much. Thank you, Saverio. No need to add anything. Those who have watched the film know that it's very, very strong. So we came to the end of this intense moment we shared together and we built together. We would like to receive more feedback, for example, from Medellin or from Nairobi, impressions, opinions, and thoughts. Hi, everybody. I am Patricia Bustamante, and I was lucky enough to be one of those who started in Net1. There have many years have passed, but I still feel that inspiring principles of fraternity. I am so happy to be here, and thank to each one of you. And my promise and my desire is to keep working together to have a more fraternal communication. Thank you, Patricia. Nairobi, Michelle. Is she here?
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to have been part of this meeting. I was invited by Florence and the Nairobi team. Communication brings communion. It's amazing for me as a journalist, being able to work to bring peace, to bring unity among our people. So I continue to urge you to continue the spirit of Chiara, which lives on, the spirit of unity, the spirit of evangelization through communication. Thank you so much. I'm happy to have been part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And many messages have, we have received many messages. Miss Len, for example, proposed to involve local initiatives. And it's so beautiful to see how this meeting is inspiring to a new use of media. And then from Cuba, thanks to each of us to bring forward this project. Many messages and here in the chat, and I would like to invite you all to connect to the webinar organized by Sofia that is still on. And we would like to we will pass you the email so that you can stay in contact with Net1. We will write it in the chat. And we would like to give you a small information on the next project that we have. It's the page of Net1 web page. International Commission, the history of Net1, dialogue as a method for research, and so on and so forth. Thanks to all of you once again for this amazing evening together, or morning, according to the part of the world that you are connecting from. And let's stay connected through our email address and very soon through our website. Thank you again.
Gracias. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Merci bien. Merci et à bientôt.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you.
Ciao. Ouais.
Muchas gracias.